People have different perspectives on what they think of video games. What is video games to them? What are video games to one person? Are they interactive mediums that break lots of boundaries of art? Or are they just high-quality entertainment that you can play around and relieve your stress over? Regardless of that, the one thing that interests me is how I, who grew up playing video games as a kid, realized that my perspective towards video games have changed in ways that I don't realize. In fact, my perspective of entertainment in general, like cartoons or games or anime, have changed in a way that I don't realize. And that way is something I just realized after reading this article. Back when I was a kid, there was a time in which I'm basically lecturing to my parents of how Naruto is the best, most philosophical anime ever that deals with complex themes of friendship, love, and hard work. Yeah, what do you expect? I was 6. Now, I think Naruto is just a shonen anime of whose legacy I don't really care because it's gone more and more stupid as time went on. That's the moment where I realized that I have significantly matured. I have thought of fiction in a way that I would never thought of as a kid. They're just escapist fantasies, things that I can just sit back and watch when I'm stressed out. They're no longer something that I held deeply as when I was a kid, or things that I took way too seriously as just when I was a kid. That brings me to asking myself on why would I lecture my parents of how Naruto is deep and sophisticated and has meanings? I remember that I did that because I was really young and I was just trying to find a place in my world. I was trying to find out who I really am. I was trying to explore the world, figuring out who I am and what defines me as a person. It seems like an anime like Naruto has brought in quite a huge impact to my childhood. It seems like Naruto gives me the catharsis of childhood fantasies. I get so passionate about it, I would defend to anyone who talks shit at it. But now, my perspective has changed. I didn't think of Naruto as seriously as I was before. In fact, I would not hesitate to criticize it. Why did that happen? What has turned me from being a young and immature fanboy of an anime that I grew up with into someone who is more jaded and critical of it to the point where I don't even care about it or its legacy at all? I think it has something to do with the consequences of growing up. When you grow up, you see things differently. Things that you thought were amazing in your childhood, you now realize they're not that special. It's pretty magical and amazing back when you were a kid and you discover these amazing things, but looking back, it's not as great as you would imagine. So, what does this have to do with people demanding video games to be more than just entertainment? Well, let's get to the article, shall we?
Deus Ex, The Last of Us, and how video games can be pertinent in the new world order. It's time for games to step up and realize their full potential as more than just entertainment in these turbulent times.
You see, people who demand that games have potential to be more than just pure entertainment is an interesting demand to have. When people demand something, they usually have a motive. So let's ask the question, why would you ask video games to mature? Well, the answer is simple. By mature, they want video games to be more me. They want video games to explain me. They want video games to represent me. So as I grow up, video games grow up as me too. Don't believe me? Well, here's the article.
The idea that video games have something important to say or something of value to contribute is a rat nonsense.
Well, they have contributed in a more physical sense of values. They have contributed into the economy. It's one of the biggest markets in the entire entertainment industry. The idea that video games do not have value to contribute is nonsensical. However, the idea that video games have something important to say or have some form of a deep intrinsic meaning inside every part of it, I think you're looking a little bit too deep on things. You don't want to go Anthony Birch and quit playing Persona 5 just because he couldn't overanalyze the intrinsic themes of every line. I mean, come on, man, it's just a JRPG.
I overheard this recently while perusing the aisles of my local video game retailer, and it stayed with me long after. The world has always been a topsy-turvy sort of a place, but there's no denying things are reaching a crescendo, and the temptation is to believe that games exist in a vacuum as an isolated means of escapism, specifically designed to take you out of this world, not confront it. This is demonstrably not the case. Indeed, I would like to make the argument that games may be just a part of the answer to some of the most seemingly intractable and concerning issues of our time.
Yes, it is the answer to the concerning issues of our time by being the escapist medium, specifically designed to take you out of this world and not confront it. What, you want video games to confront modern contemporary issues too? Last time I checked, people went on tantrums when Deus Ex Mankind Divided does that. They use it as an allegory to one of the core themes of the stories. I'm curious of how you want video games to be. How do you think video games can be the answer to our turbulent times?
First, we need some context. The world in 2017 is a very scary place. Not in all sum of all fears or everything is going to explode sort of way, but the small and persistent eroding of personal freedoms, deteriorating social relations, and rolling back of a moral groundwork sort of way. A great many people are very concerned that we are sleepwalking our way towards a society that embraces fear, encourages intolerance, and promotes mistrust.
Yes, I'm genuinely worried about it too. Last time the UC Berkeley riots where people are destroying garbage bins and other public properties because, God forbid, Milo wants to speak in there, the mistrust and encouragement of intolerance is indeed very sickening among these people.
This evil is particularly vicious, precise, because of its subtlety, its ability to hide amongst the debate and the conspiracies. It's a kind of creeping malevolence that is born from genuine concerns and legitimate grievance. Whatever your political beliefs, there's no denying the deep divides that exist in our modern patchwork society.
Yes, division happens because people have different opinions, and some are even willing to just kill others for simply being that case. What or how does that relate to video games where a hot chick is fighting monsters from hell?
Currently, it's basically the opening credits to every movie set in a dystopian future. You know the kind where it starts off in a series of new media intros cut together that serve it a place in the narrator. Coming up at 11, food prices continue to soar, riots on the streets, unrest in the Middle East, mad demagogue elected president of the United States.
Yes, and it's not good to always engage and consume depressing political news from biased mainstream media sources. That's why you should all go out to video games where you can be a hot chick that shoots demons from hell, or maybe an anime where an ancient dragon is a really cute girl who eats everything.
So we are confronted with a reality that may inspire fear and anxiety amongst many. To those people, I have only one comfort to offer. Think about all the amazing cultural artifacts that came out of the other turbulent periods in human history that helped ease the pain.
Think about the Japanese hentai games.
Hentai games.
The uncertainty of post-war Europe gave birth to modern rock music and French new wave cinema. The modern era that took root in the late 70s and early 80s with all its frightening technology and rapid societal change offered us the best of Bruce Springsteen, Grandmaster Flash, and the Sex Pistols, as well as groundbreaking films such as Raging Bull and Blade Runner.
And let's not forget the Japanese hentai games.
お前のイラストって超エロいよな。
My point is not to trivialize those very real and momentous circumstances, but to simply offer some hope that if we are indeed living through a very pivotal moment in human history, that the precedent is that we can always expect some truly fantastic art as a result.
Like,
Does Samuel L. Jackson like anime?
say with me,
Yes, I do. Hentai too.
Often maligned as juvenile, inconsequential, and meaningless, video games are the errant child of the culture industry, perceived as obsessed with violence, sex, and power fantasies. Video games are still not taken seriously as an art form.
there needs to be a time in which video games where a hot chick in short skirts battling robots in a post-apocalyptic world be taken seriously by everybody. No, not you.
I believe the time has come for that change, and gamers can do this by seizing the opportunity to address the core issues of our troubled time. At the times of real insecurity, there is often a tendency for society to close ranks and drift towards uniformity.
Seize the means of video game production.
The idea being that consolidating the many is a position of strength from which to face the uncertain world. The issue here is the inherent focus of the many as a kind of homogeneous blob. Deviations from the norm undermines the majority, and so the social landscape threatens to morph into one of the hate, misunderstanding, and dread, where the individual is threatened on the very basis of what makes them unique.
Watch out, video games will make you a collectivist drone. Have you seen that guy who says the PC master race will turn you into a men's rights activist?
It is the trend that I believe video games are suitably equipped to help reverse. Video games and their narrative structures are so well placed to tackle the idea of what makes us human, precisely because they ask us to take on the mantle of someone else. Even if they are the type of game where you create a version of yourself, it is still asking whether you wish to craft a fair reflection of an imagined likeness stemming from an arrogance or insecurity. Either way, you're tackling the idea of identity, and this could not be more relevant in 2017.
So your tastes in video games are capable of finding out who you really are as an individual, determining your identity in these turbulent times of increasingly silly internet memes. If you're playing a game of erotic animated kunoichis on Steam, you are indeed a man of our culture. You are a dissident among the sanitized, politically correct establishment, a much-needed entity to engage against the increasingly authoritarian status quo who contemplates on the means of seizing Japanese entertainment for sanitization of their weak, underdeveloped, intellectually bankrupt minds. The complex language of a pseudo-intellectual collectivist sitting on their ivory tower with their rich parents as money master race is a tranquil and relaxing but also sometimes irritating exercise to interpret for the common minds of a peasant, because what's happening on the inside of the brain of a typical authoritarian is a blank slate being tampered into catering to the demands of an authority figure, brainwashing them into mind slaves for their own gains. It is by no means as incomprehensible as it was of a person on his crappy cosplay suit making nonsensical videos on the deep entangled web with his no larger than 21,000 subscribers. If this is your approach on espousing your authoritarian philosophies, then by all means I would kindly respond into a similar form of communication for the sake of padding this audio clip a few minutes longer in the purpose of gaining more money and validating the excuse for a commercial break. Oh, and this video is financially supported by the kind gentlemen at Patreon, James Hoglin, Bumbledicker, and Raging Slavic Demon. You are inflicting great harmony to my perverted-minded soul.
There are a handful of examples that have touched on the fringes of this issue with varying levels of success. The Deus Ex series has recently focused on exploring the ideas underpinning our humanity and what happens when you start to augment those concepts, and earlier installments examined complex political, financial, and philosophical issues that were oddly prescient.
And in a lot of ways, Deus Ex as a series themselves has spawned numerous engaging political conspiracies within its own universe and the universe of our own, like how it predicted the horrendous events of September 11.
In a world that requests adherence to the norm, Deus Ex challenges us to blur the lines. By confronting the player's perception of acceptance and tolerance, Deus Ex was able to explore rather than directly inform. It did so by providing choices with consequences, and this is a trick unique to video games. Conventional storytelling allows you to provide a glimpse of the future, whereas the narrative framework of video games allows for a multitude of possible scenarios. It is the player's decision which is the most palatable, and that has the potential to teach them something about who they are and are the kind of person they want to be.
Ah, but you see, the claims that video games provide alternative opportunities for the players to explore stories that are beyond the realms of possibility is in a lot of ways similar to a very wide tunnel. A wide tunnel that gives you multiple routes to hop around, but still ends up being in the same destination as everybody else. Deus Ex is a mastercraft of redefining the video games as a whole for the entire millennia. A game that explores and gives players multiple playstyles and routes to get into the next plot point, but the destination of every player and playstyles are almost no different. The UNATCO HQ will still be your destination regardless of your ethical or unethical methods of taking down the terrorist leader in the Liberty. It provides more options to approach, certainly with the design of its open-ended levels, but it is by no means a sprawling grass field that leads you to different scenarios as more commoners make it out to be. There is still an inherent narrative structure built within these open-ended levels that restrict the player into following a tunnel, a large and wide tunnel, but still a tunnel nonetheless. Even the likes of narrative mediums like visual novels with multiple routes still have their boundaries and limitations that the players had to endure. To suggest that these video games with these open-ended approaches that allows more and more options can properly define the identity of the player and the player character is not entirely false. However, there's only a minuscule likelihood that what players wanted is to have video games to reflect on who they are as a person and not what they wanted to be. What you want it to be can define who you are in some ways, but the mere sayings of, I want to be a space marine thanks to playing Mass Effect, is an immature and lackluster way of explaining one's true personality. The actions of playing video games alone cannot define entirely of what a person really is, and this sense of self-discovery of one's own personality through playing video games don't really affect those of older age, and more affecting those that are of the younger age, which probably explains the mindset of the writer for today.
If this is the sense of self-discovery that is also present in games like Journey, where the experience is simple and personal by design but no less profound, a subtle story with translucent themes of endeavor, achievement, and cooperation, Journey shows how even games without a sophisticated plot can still encourage the player to understand the world around them. It's a game that asks the player to use their imagination, to piece a puzzle together, and to envision a world beyond themselves and their place within it.
And to suggest that the playthrough of one in video game Journey can define them to be what they are and who they are in the real world is a Ridiculous assertion. The discovery elements of Journey is the core element of the game that makes it riveting for the players to explore the possibilities of the universe within. It is by no means a method to discover one true self in a similar fashion of Doctor Strange's Journey to the Unknown. It is a piece of highly entertaining interactive medium that engages the players to think and challenge while they are on the process of consuming said medium, but to interpret this journey as a journey of finding one's true self is frankly childish. It is on the implication that the ones who interpret it as such do not have any one's own personality to begin with. Once in a lifetime, I cannot articulate and define properly of who I am and what I am. Video games help me to express myself and channel myself to discover what I wanted to be. The problem? I was 6. Growing up as an adult with a more sophisticated processing power in my brains and 10 times more self-awareness than a 6-year-old Naruto fanboy, it's unlikely for video games to actually stick out in my head as it used to be when I was of a younger age. I've grown up and matured to finally realize that video games are high-quality entertainment, but the end of the tunnel still indicates that video games are still entertainment, no matter how beautiful the tunnel might be, and that the best among the best of video games are those that embrace the entertainment potentials of the medium, whether it be through mindless violence, erotic sexiness, or even deep and engaging stories, lore, settings, and mechanics. The values of entertainment can be achieved by so many means, and there's no loss on discussing these brilliant values that entertainment can give to us. The mechanics of Journey, the open-endedness and depth of Deus Ex, the sexiness of Bayonetta or 2B, but to realize that those entertainment mediums are still entertainment at the end of the tunnel is the one way for us to truly embrace our maturity, because that is objectively what they are. They are high-quality entertainment with interesting depths and values, but still entertainment, one that we consume to relieve our stress. It is in some ways quite ironic that the people who think that video games can be more than just mindless entertainment and that it can define one's true self and break beyond the boundaries of the standards of art, they're the same people that act like an immature pestilent child on their social media. It's a really interesting sense of discovery that I stumbled in as I write this sophisticated gibberish. The denial that video games in the end are high quality entertainment and nothing more actually indicates the maturity of one's own. It's akin to a 6-year-old me lecturing adults of how his favorite childhood anime Naruto is a deep and sophisticated, intellectually engaging philosophical journey of a little brat's wish of becoming a significant political figure by the power of love and friendship. Yeah, we all had that moment of explaining to our parents of how the cartoons or video games that we consume are actually deeper than it was, and this article is a huge reflection of that. The most terrifying out of all of this is that it's written by an adult.
There is, however, one game in particular which I believe demonstrates the medium's ability to tell important human stories in a sophisticated, nuanced fashion that could serve as the template going forward. Naughty Dog's 2013 release, The Last of Us. There is nothing especially original about its plot. A viral outbreak threatens all life on the planet, society is collapsed, and people that did survive are huddled together, scraping by in highly secure communities often run by authoritarian military governments. Unremarkable fare, you might understandably suggest, where this story excels in its true depiction of humanity. Not in a grandiose, high-concept kind of way, but by exploring the relationship between the practical yet exhausted Joel and the more idealistic and sincere Ellie.
Like I said, it's very similar to a 6-year-old kid screaming, "OMG, Last of Us is really deep, guys! Please take me and my video game seriously!" Look, the core narrative values of The Last of Us have already made thousands of people to consider it one of the best games in the past couple of decades. I don't see how more and more appreciation to this already critically acclaimed game is necessary unless your motivation is to speak to how this video game speaks about yourself.
At the end of the day, The Last of Us is just a video game, but its themes are extremely relevant to the world today. If the 21st century is the era of the self, then perhaps we could all do with a lesson in what it means to step outside the limits of our own limited perspective. Video games are uniquely placed to accomplish this feat, and now is the time to step up and join the grown-ups.
Join the grown-ups. Oh god, how cute of you to claim such a thing. Video games have grown up. Video games have mature themes. The moment they embrace themselves to be high quality entertainment is the moment where they excel the best. However, the moment where they decided to be not that and try to be secluded, narrow, expressive, artistic definitive of the personality of just one person is the moment where they fell. Video games deliver entertainment through entertaining gameplay mechanics. It can also deliver entertainment through great storytelling and deep philosophical themes. It can also deliver at all of them. It does not deliver on making the game to be more me, 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 me. But games can only be taken seriously as an art form if it expresses me, my struggle, my pain. How about no?
For too long, I've been the last refuge of the adolescent when the means are there to accomplish so much more. Why not force the player to confront what it means to suffer from a shared belief, whatever that belief may be? Show them a world they've never experienced, not in some far-flung galaxy, but one that exists on the other side of the street. These human stories exist, and perhaps if we understood them a bit more, we could hold back the tide of persecution and vilification that now seems so prevalent.
So video games should just be about the minorities and kids that you feel bad at in like the corner of the streets in somewhere at Silicon Valley. This does scream a child to be taken seriously by their parents. Please take our complex, sophisticated, artistic video games seriously, please? No. We take video games in whatever fashion we want it to take, including mindless entertainment. I take The Last of Us as a game with a great story and great characters. You take The Last of Us as a game that defines the 21st century, the era of self, the era of me. The era of me. Wow. That is a perfect title. The era of me. Good God, that explains a lot, doesn't it?
The examples of games that have challenged convention are few and far between. The mainstream games industry need to catch up as quickly as possible to bring these issues to the fore. To forego this opportunity would be a criminal waste.
As in, the mainstream games should make games that define me. Mainstream games should make games that speak to who I am. Mainstream games should make games that represent me. The one way for video games to be taken seriously as an art form is if it describes and defines the insecurities that I personally feel in these turbulent times that I am living in. Because this is the era of self. This is the era of me. Fucking hell. I never thought that I would hear the reflection of the screams of my 6-year-old self telling my parents of how Naruto is the most sophisticated philosophical work of animation, a modern masterpiece produced by absolute genius in storytelling that explores the themes of friendship and love in a way kids can comprehend. My parents were laughing and telling me of how it's just an anime, but I kept on insisting that it's deeper, it's more than that, it's complicated, and you just don't understand it. Now that I've grown up, I realize how much of a dumbass I am. I realize how far I've grown. I am so glad that I mature normally. I mature to think of video games not as seriously as I was before. I have stayed out of my childhood fantasies of how games are a part of my life, how games are big, how games are huge, how games speak to who I really am. Now that I've matured, now that I'm 19 and I'm living on my own, I realize that there are many more things that are more important than video games. Because video games are, in the end, high-quality entertainment. They can provide great enjoyment to my stressful life. I cannot imagine growing up having my 6-year-old self in me telling people of how Naruto is deep and people should take it seriously. But after reading this article, I am so glad that I've grown out of that phase. So what do you guys think? Maybe you guys have some sort of stories on your childhood fanboys that you eventually grew out of? Something that you want to just defend with your life when people talk shit at it? Comment below and let me know about it. And before we end this video, one more thanks go to Karen for the fan art on Twitter. It looks pretty damn good. That's all for the video today. If you like this, you can go ahead, click the like button, and subscribe for more. If you wish, you can support me on Patreon. And thanks for watching.